Welcome back to Anderson's Smoke Show. Today, we're gonna be smoking a coffee brisket. Stick around and see how we do it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring that bell so that you can keep up with the latest content. Smash that like button and write me a comment. Let me know what you think. Now let's take a look at that brisket. All right, so we've got our brisket here. We need to get this trimmed up. Let's go ahead and get started. Now with the brisket, there's two different kinds of fats on here. This is a typical fat that you would see on a steak. This is soft, this will render as it cooks. This is hard. This is actually hard like a rock. This will not render. This is not a good fat to leave on the meat. You can see I can barely even bend this. We're gonna go ahead and take our knife and we're just gonna start to cut that away. If we take a little meat with it, it's okay. And with these whole briskets, we've got the point and we've got the flat. We're not gonna be separating that today. We're gonna be cooking this thing whole. Now this was an 11-pound brisket. We're actually gonna save all this fat here and we're gonna weigh this once we're done trimming, just to kind of see how much we actually took off. So you do want to leave a little bit of fat on this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim away some of this loose fat. One of the easier ways to do this is to just lift the brisket up. Just kind of hold your knife flat with the surface there. This is a USDA Prime Brisket. We picked this up from Costco today. Little did I know when I put it in the cart that the $45 price tag was not correct. It turns out it was $10 off today. So we got this 11-pound whole brisket, USDA Prime, for $35. I was pretty excited about that. The girl at the cash register probably thought I was nuts. So if you look here, we've got this really rough edge. There's a lot of fat and it goes all the way around. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna trim this off because that's not good. We're just gonna round this up a little bit and clean that up. Off right there as well. Got a little bit of meat there, but that's okay. Straighten out this. All right. We're gonna go ahead and flip this over. We're gonna show you that fat cap. There's this big hunk here. We're gonna trim this off. I just want to look and just try and make that level there. Just to remove that flap. Expose a little bit of meat, but that's okay. You can see the fat cap on this is a little thick, but it's not too bad. We are going to trim it in a few places. So when you look at this brisket here, you've got this nice thick, we got probably 1.5 inches of meat over here on this flat, and you can see this gets super thin. So we're gonna come in and carve this part out because what's gonna happen is this is gonna cook so fast, it's gonna dry up, it's gonna curl. We don't want any of that. So I'm gonna take my chef's knife here and I'm just gonna cut and round this up right there. Go ahead and get this on there. And it looks like 3 pounds, 6.4 ounces. So we're looking at about an 8-pound brisket now. So we've got this brisket trimmed. This is looking good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step here. All right, so the next thing that I'm gonna do is gonna drive some of you die-hard barbecue guys crazy. I'm a brine guy. I've wet brined a lot of things in my videos, and I'm gonna continue doing that. One thing that I think pairs great with beef is coffee. So what we're gonna do is do an hour wet brine with this brisket and some black coffee. So I've got this 2.5 gallon bag. I'm gonna pick this big old brisket up. Hopefully I don't drop it on the floor. I'm gonna get this down into this bag. I've got a little bit more than 2 cups of black coffee. All right, we've got this brisket and the coffee. We're gonna go ahead and set this in the refrigerator for an hour. That's it. Coffee's pretty acidic. We don't want any more than that. We'll check back in soon. All right, this brisket has been in the coffee in the refrigerator for about an hour. We're gonna go ahead and get this out. We're gonna dry it up and get some dry rub on it so that it can rest overnight. Let's get started here. Smells like coffee. I've got some paper towel here ready to just soak up some of this coffee here, dry it up. That acid in the coffee will help tenderize it a little bit. It'll give it a little bit of flavor. You'd be surprised how much that'll do, even in just an hour. All right, so I'm gonna start out with a little bit of the coarse kosher salt here from Morton's. I'm not gonna put a whole lot. I'm just gonna pat that in there good. And next, I've got this Cowboy Crust by Spiceology. This is an espresso chili rub. We've got some spices, some espresso powder, brown sugar, mustard seed, and salt. Gonna go ahead and get this involved here. And I'm just going to drizzle this on. That's got a beautiful color to it. Go ahead and pat that in there really good. Go ahead and flip this over. I'm gonna do the same thing. Go with the coarse salt here. It's got some beautiful color. That's gonna turn out great. It's got a nice, strong coffee aroma. Part of that's from that coffee brine and from this espresso chili rub. Let's go ahead, make sure the spices are on there really good. We're gonna go ahead and saran wrap this overnight. That way these spices will set in and it'll be ready to go in the morning. All right, we've got this brisket wrapped up in saran wrap. We've got that dry rub on. We're gonna go ahead and get this into the refrigerator overnight. It's gonna end up being about an 8 to 10 hour because we're gonna get this out in the morning. We're gonna let this get up to room temperature before we get it in the smoker. We'll see you then. For today's smoke, we're gonna go with the Whiskey Barrel Oak. It's been a few minutes since we've used it. I think the last video was our tomahawk ribeye. Go ahead and check that out up here. We're gonna go ahead and use these. I think it'll pair well. Let me show you what else it pairs well with. All right, so for the Whiskey Barrel Oak, we're looking at beef, wild game, fish, seafood, and baking. It's not the most versatile, but it's extremely flavorful. Now let's go ahead and load these up. Now this is gonna be a longer smoke. We wanna go ahead and get this loaded up so that we don't run into any issues later. As you can see, it's early in the morning and it's time to get this brisket in. We've had it resting, got it up to room temperature. We've got the smoker preheated to 225 degrees. Let's go ahead and get this in. So we've got this brisket in the smoker. We've got it set to 225 degrees. Our goal here is not about time, it's about temperature. And we're looking to reach 165 degrees internal temperature before we really do anything else. When we put the brisket in, we put it fat side down. Now I know there's a large debate on whether you put it fat side up, fat side down. Well, we chose fat side down because as the fat starts to render and starts turning to liquid, we're gonna let the liquid drip into the drip pan rather than wash away all of our rub. There's a lot of other debates on whether or not fat actually keeps meat moist and helps make it tender. It's really the collagen in the meat. Collagen is a connective tissue within the muscle fibers, and as that breaks down, that's actually what makes the meat super tender, makes it fall apart. Has nothing to do with the fat. So we've got the brisket in, we've got the temperature set, we got the probes in. We're gonna keep an eye on it. We're gonna check back in soon. We're a little over an hour and a half into the smoke, set at 225 degrees. The brisket looks like it's reading about 118, 120 degrees right now. We've checked it periodically to see what the surface is looking like, and it's about time to spritz it. So I've got a concoction here of beef broth and Worcestershire sauce. Now, if you didn't know, Worcestershire sauce is vinegar based, so that vinegar will help to keep the meat moist and tenderize it. So let's go ahead and get in here. Pull this out just a little bit. You can see there is a little puddle up, and look at that jiggle. Yeah. So you saw that we spritzed this. We're gonna go ahead and keep an eye on it, and anytime the surface looks like it's starting to dry up a little bit, we're gonna keep it moist. We're keeping an eye on that temperature. We're looking for 165 degrees. That's when we're gonna pull it and wrap it. Check back in soon. Thank you for everybody that joined the live stream. While we were waiting for this brisket to reach 165 degrees, we sat down, we had nice conversations with some of our fans. You guys know who you are. Thank you again for joining us. We're celebrating 200 subscribers today with this brisket. Now, it has reached 165 degrees internal temperature. That's a temperature that we're gonna pull this at, so let's go ahead and do it. Reach 165 degrees. We're gonna go inside, we're gonna wrap it in foil. You've got other options like butcher paper. Butcher paper breathes a little bit better than foil does, but we don't have any, so we're gonna use foil. We're gonna go inside, get this thing wrapped and back into the smoker until we reach about 201 to 203 degrees. That's where we're gonna see that tenderness that we're looking for. Check back in soon. We've got this brisket back out here. It's wrapped in foil, that heavy duty foil. It's gonna protect us fat side down. Keep in mind where that's at. It's gonna keep the juices below, keep the rub intact on top. We're gonna get this back into the smoker. We're keeping it at 225 degrees today, but the one thing that we wanna keep in mind and monitor is the temperature of the brisket. We want this thing to reach between 201 and 203 degrees. That's when the collagen in the meat is broken down the most. It's moist, it's juicy, it's tender, and it is fall apart. And that is what we are looking for today. Now let me sell it to you here. Let's hop into the smoker. We've got some of the thickest sides over here, but that's where we kept it. We're gonna rotate it. We're gonna do a little bit like that. If you saw my video of knowing where the hot spots are in your grill. It's very important when you're smoking quality pieces of meat, when you're doing long smokes, to know where the hottest parts are in your grill. So we did a little rotation of the brisket here to kind of expose the front part towards the hottest part, which in my smoker, in my personal experience, is towards the back left corner. Yours may be different. So I would suggest looking at that video, identifying the hot spots in your smoker or grill. You can check that out up here. We'll check back in soon. Welcome back. It's been a long day. We've had this brisket in for 11 hours. That was 5.5 hours unwrapped at 225 degrees. Then we wrapped it in some heavy duty foil, and we're sitting here 5.5 hours later. So a total of 11 hours. We just measured the temperature with my ThermaPen MK4, and we're looking at about 202 degrees overall. If we average it out, it is time to pull this thing out, but we're not done yet. Hey cameraman, can you throw me that towel? Thank you. One of the most important things when it comes to a brisket and many cuts of meat is the rest period. With this brisket, we need this thing to rest upwards of an hour. Best way to do that is in a towel inside of a cooler. Now, I do have better coolers than this, but my dad borrowed them the other day because we're going out of town in a few days and he needed it for beer, and you know where the priorities are. So, styrofoam cooler, towel. We're gonna go ahead and get this laid in here really quickly. Get it ready for that brisket. We're gonna go ahead and pull that brisket out carefully. This thing is so tender. I'm so excited about this. I've got this brisket. I'm gonna carefully lay this down in the cooler. I'm gonna wrap this beautiful little senorita into this towel. And we're gonna set her in here. We're gonna check back in about an hour. This is going to be amazing. I want you to see it, so stick around and see what we've got in store for you. Welcome back. The last time we talked, we pulled the brisket out of the smoker. It was at about 202 degrees. We wrapped it up in a towel and we placed it in that styrofoam cooler. It's been about an hour since then, and it's time to get it out and get it into the house, get this thing cut up. We're gonna give it a good old try. Let's go ahead and do it. Oh, that is so soft. It is crazy, and it is dripping the most awesome smelling juices. We're inside. We had this brisket resting for an hour in the cooler. We're gonna open this thing up, get it on the cutting board, slice this up. I want you to see firsthand how juicy. I want you to see that smoke ring. I haven't even seen it yet, but my expectations are so high. Please, Lord, don't let me down. Get in here. You are seeing this firsthand. We are going to pop this foil off. I want you to see we are cutting into this. The first time we've seen this in 6.5 hours. What this looks like. Holy smokes, is that dark? That's gotta be from the coffee. That's some jiggly meat right there. I'm gonna cut this live. We're gonna go right here. Look at the juice. Look at that amazing smoke ring. None of that means anything until we taste it. I want you to see that. Look at that. Just falling apart. Look at that smoke ring, that bark. It is time to taste this. I am so excited. It's been a long day. I've been up since 5:30 in the morning. Look at that smoke ring. We are going to give this a try. This is the first brisket that Anderson Smoke Show has done. Wow. I can't even describe those flavors. There's a lot going on right now. That stuff is full. Look at the jiggle on that. Look at that. That cowboy crust by Spiceology, man, that is a good rub. We didn't do a thing other than brine that in coffee for an hour prior to putting the rub on, and that is delicious. Absolutely delicious. Thanks again for tuning in to Anderson Smoke Show. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel so that you can keep up with the latest content.